Hey guys, Jennifer Dixon here, and today I thought I would talk to you a little bit about downward facing dog, down dog, or in Sanskrit, Adho Muka Svanasana. This is a pretty typical pose you'd see in a flow, a power class, and I thought I would talk about some stuff that you might want to think about the next time you practice. I see a lot of different types of down dogs in my class, and I come from a Ashtanga background. My 200 and 500 hour training was in power yoga, and that teacher was a Ashtanga based power, and then I've continued my training with Ashtanga. So my cueing, my alignment, all of that comes from an Ashtanga background. And each lineage has its own pros and cons, but the downward facing dog that you find in an Ashtanga class looks a lot different than you may find like in maybe in a Iyengar based class. And so I'm going to talk to you about the downward facing dog that I think is the safer way to approach the pose. So I'm going to show you from the side, and then probably midway through I'll show you from the front so you can see the different angles and what's going on with the shoulders. So again, Adho Muka Svanasana, it's part of the sun salutation sequence. It's part of a vinyasa. If you are in a power or flow class, they usually say go through your vinyasa, and you usually end up in a downward facing dog. It's considered a resting pose, but let me tell you folks, like, this is not a resting pose, especially when you're brand new. It takes a lot of work to hold your body up. It takes a whole bunch of strength. So if downward facing dog is difficult, that's okay. It's meant to be. Let me make sure you guys can hear me. If you struggle with it, then that's okay. Come out of it when your hands hurt. If your shoulders hurt, come out of it. Do what you can do. Every single time you practice, you'll notice a difference. And so maybe on another video, I'll talk to you about some modifications that you can do if your wrists tend to bother you. So join me today. All you need is your mat and a hard surface. And let's talk about downward facing dog. So from the side, you're going to see that my feet are hips width distance apart, and my hands are planted squarely on the mat. Now, you're going to see lots and lots and lots of people that have super long down dogs. Now, when you do this is a lot harder to keep your bandhas, the belly muscles, engaged. When you're super long like this, you're going to tend to collapse in the shoulder girdle, and you're going to tend to just keep pressing those shoulders into your hips. Now, if you shorten it up ever so slightly, then you're going to force yourself to kind of keep that pelvis to rib cage engagement. So let me show it to you again. A slightly shorter step, and everybody's going to be different, right? Because not everybody's my height. So for me, I've got a little more than 3 feet in between my hands and my feet. And if you're super tall, you might have more. So this is what I see a lot of. Check out my shoulders and check out my back and my belly. People are really pushing their chest right into their thighs. Now, at the beginning of class and every now and again, that might feel okay. But to hang out and do this every day, every time you come into your practice, what's going on in my shoulders? I am stretching to the edge of my shoulder girdle every single time. What is not happening? My shoulders are not engaged. Now check out the difference also in my belly and in my chest. I've almost got like a cow back, right? Because the belly and the chest is pressing into the thighs. So that means my belly is not engaged. My bandhas aren't engaged. Now check out the difference here. I'm going to round through the spine ever so slightly. So belly's just letting loose, right? In order to round, you have to keep the belly engaged. When you do that, the shoulders automatically get engaged. They automatically kind of roll out and away from the ears and get strong, so you're in the muscles. Your head, that head is not invited to the party. In Ashtanga, they call this Nabhi Drishti. That's looking towards your belly button. You could also look towards your nose if you wanted. It's a little more difficult. So I like to look towards your belly button and let the head hang. Now, let's talk about your hands. I like to say take up real estate with your hands. When you've got your hands really close together or even out at an angle or doing something funny like that, that can put some undue pressure on your wrist. So I like to say, take up some real estate with your hands. You're pressing into the mat a lot with your thumb and your pointer fingers. When you let some space come between the mat and the palm of the hand, that's going to put a lot more pressure here on this outside of the wrist. And if you're looking at a skeleton, that's the smaller of the two arm bones, right? We don't need to do that. That's just undue stress on this little bitty wrist. So try to think about pressing down with the thumb and the pointer finger. If you get into the habit of pressing down really strong with the thumb and the pointer finger, when you start to move towards other inversions, arm balances, that's going to become a lot more second nature. So then when you're working on your handstand or you're working on your crow, you're not going to collapse to the outsides of your wrist. And so I know that there's a lot of newer teachers around teaching. You can go ahead and let this air come up with your hands and all of that. If you look at some of the more old school teachers, their hands are pressing into the mat. They are actively pressing. And so as you balance and move with your hands, you're going to have some space coming, but you're actively pushing into the mat. The same thing with the downward facing dog. You want your hands flat onto the mat. Bruce is visiting us. So let me show you from the front what it looks like in my shoulders when I'm collapsing into my shoulders and when I am not engaging through my abdomen. My hands are planted shoulders width distance apart. My hips reach up towards the sky. Now, here I am pressing my chest and shoulders into the thighs. That's not engaged. Here I am slightly rounding through the spine, belly's in. Watch how my shoulders round away from the ears. My hands are pressing into the mat. And suddenly, I'm stronger here. My belly is working more. My hands are pressing into the mat evenly in all 5 of my digits. Okay, so what's going on with your feet? Depends on how open you are in the backs of your legs, the backs of your hammies, your calves, your Achilles. Your heel may or may not be touching the mat. That's okay. It doesn't matter. With time, everything comes. You know, Patabi Joyce used to say, practice and all is coming. You can pontificate on that till the cows come home. What is more important is that you keep those bandhas engaged and you're not hyperextending through the elbows and you're not hyperflexing the shoulders. Especially you folks that tend to, like if you straighten your arms and your elbows are like actually bending the wrong way, it's going to feel like your elbows are bent a lot, but it's not. When you bend your elbows are probably going to be straight, those of you that are hypermobile. Yeah, Bruce loves to be in the videos too. So, key takeaways that you want to think about when you're doing your downward facing dog. Take up some real estate with your hands. Press in with your thumb and the pointer finger a lot so that you're not collapsing into the outsides of the hands. Then, when you come into the downward facing dog and you lift your hips up into the air, imagine almost a little bit of a cat back so that your pelvis can be still reaching for the front of the rib cage. So that forces your belly to be engaged and forces your belly to be strong. This will also help you to plug your hands into the mat and get those shoulders away from the ears. I'll demonstrate it one more time. Feet are planted. Your heels may or may not touch the mat. Not important. Here is sinking into the joints. Here is coming from a place of strength. Can you see the difference? Sinking into the joints. This can hurt you over time. There's no muscles really working here. Here, you're pressing the thumb and the pointer finger into the mat. Your hands are pressing forward ever so slightly and maybe a little out. My belly is engaged. That belly button is going to the spine. And my shoulders are rotating away. I know that there's different ways. People teach different ways. Some people, I think, teach in. I have always practiced out and away from my ears, pressing my hands into the mat. If you have any questions or comments, please don't hesitate. Leave me some in the comment fields down below. And I can't wait to see you on the mat soon. Thanks again. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.